It is 10 p.m. The kitchen is clean, the children are asleep, the messages are answered. And somewhere right now, a woman is standing in the middle of everything she holds together, wondering if a single person in her life actually sees her. There is a specific kind of woman who gives quietly, completely, and consistently, without ever asking to be recognized for it. Not because she does not want to be seen. Because she learned very early that asking to be seen is asking for too much. What looks like someone who is fine with being overlooked is actually a woman who has spent years compressing a very real and very human need. The need to matter. The need to have her effort land somewhere with weight and not just disappear into the ordinary. That is not being low maintenance. That is a woman who was taught, by repetition, not by words, that her contributions are expected. That they are the flaw, not something worth noticing. She kept giving anyway. Because that is who she is. What looks like someone without needs is actually a woman whose needs became invisible even to herself. She stopped naming them. Not because they went away. Because naming them and watching them be ignored is a specific kind of pain she learned to avoid. That is not contentment. That is self-protection with a smile on top. She kept her needs quiet because quiet needs cannot be dismissed out loud. And she had already experienced what it felt like to be dismissed out loud too many times. What looks like endless giving without resentment is actually a woman who has learned to convert her disappointment into more effort. She could not change what others gave her. So she changed what she gave them. More. Always more. Hoping something would finally register. That is not selflessness without limit. That is a woman who has been quietly running on the hope that if she just does enough, eventually someone will look up and say, truly mean it, that she is the reason everything works. Researchers who study emotional labor and recognition found something specific about women who grew up in environments where their contributions went consistently unacknowledged. More than 7 out of 10 of them develop a deeply internal measure of their own worth. Not because it is healthier. Because external confirmation was never reliable enough to trust. A research team examined how unappreciated effort affects the brain over time in women who give consistently without receiving recognition. They found the brain eventually starts producing lower levels of the chemicals connected to satisfaction. Not because the giving stops mattering. Because giving without return changes how reward registers internally. Psychologists who work with this type of woman describe something that takes most people by surprise. Around 69% of women who are chronically underappreciated in close relationships show a heightened sensitivity to small gestures. A single sincere thank you. A moment of being truly noticed. It lands with enormous weight, because they have been living so long in the absence of it. That means your nervous system is not asking for too much. It is asking for exactly what it was always owed. The hunger you feel when someone finally, genuinely sees you, that hunger is not neediness. That is years of patience finally having somewhere to land. Researchers who followed women in long-term relationships where appreciation was rarely expressed found something worth sitting with. Around 73% of those women described a slow, quiet erosion of their own sense of value, not because they stopped being valuable, but because nothing around them reflected it back. If this sounds like you, comment ONE. If you think it is more complicated than that, comment 0. Either way, I want to know where you stand. Here is where it usually starts. Not in adulthood. Earlier. In a home where you were the responsible one, the helpful one, the one who made things easier for everyone around you, and where that making things easier was simply absorbed into the daily air without acknowledgement. No one said you were doing something remarkable. Because remarkable things, when they happen every day, start to look ordinary. And ordinary things do not get thanked. They get expected. And you became the most quietly expected person in every room you entered. Then it followed you. Into friendships where you planned everything. Into relationships where you remembered everything. Into workplaces where you carried more than your share and watched someone else receive the credit. The pattern did not change. Only the location did. And somewhere in the repetition of that pattern, something shifted inside you. You started to wonder if perhaps you were not the kind of person people naturally think to appreciate. Not broken. Just, somehow easy to take for granted. That thought became very comfortable in the quiet parts of your mind. You do not wait for permission. You do not need someone else to confirm that what you gave was enough. You already know. That knowing was not given to you. It was built one unacknowledged effort at a time. But knowing your own worth privately and feeling it reflected back to you are two completely different things. And you deserve both. Not just the interior knowing. The reflection too. The moment someone looks at what you carry and says, out loud, with their whole chest, that they see it. Society made this harder. It celebrated your giving as a virtue. It called you selfless as if selfless were the highest compliment a woman could receive. But selfless, when used to describe someone who was never given the space to have a self, is not a compliment. It is an erasure with a bow on it. You were never too much to be appreciated. You were simply surrounded, too often, by people whose capacity to give recognition could not match your capacity to deserve it. That is a mismatch of character. Not a verdict on your value. And the most painful part is this. You started to edit yourself. You started giving a little less here. Needing a little less there. Making yourself smaller not because you wanted to be smaller, but because full-sized, you kept taking up more space than people around you were willing to acknowledge. And that editing cost you something. It cost you the experience of being fully known. Of someone seeing all of what you give and choosing to match it, not out of obligation, but out of genuine recognition that you are someone worth rising to. You are not too much. You are not too giving to be appreciated. You are not broken and you are not invisible. You are a woman whose capacity to show up for the people she loves is not a burden on anyone. It is one of the rarest things a person can offer. You are a woman whose need to be truly seen is not a flaw in the design. It is the design. And the right person, the right friend, the right partner, the right room, will not treat your need for recognition as high maintenance. They will treat it as the most obvious thing in the world. Because it is obvious. What you carry is obvious. What you build is obvious. What you hold together without being asked is obvious. The only thing that was missing was people with enough presence to look up from what you gave them and actually see you giving it. You are not someone who asks for too much by wanting to be appreciated. You are someone who has given so much for so long that being finally, genuinely seen will feel like setting down a weight you forgot you were carrying. The quiet way you have loved people, without fanfare, without keeping score, without ever making anyone feel like they owed you, is not a gap in who you are. For the right kind of woman, it is exactly where everything worth building truly begins. If this made you think of a woman you know, send it to her. Not because she needs fixing. Because sometimes a person needs to hear that what they carry quietly is actually a kind of strength.